I wasn't on the air last week, which was the most recent week after they aired, and I guess there's not a lot I was going to say, but I just had a few points about some general things that happened that I thought were kind of funny. So, yeah. Anyway, starting with it, I mean, I really don't watch any award shows to be honest. I'm not alone in that. I think a lot of people don't. And I mean, I kind of forgot that the Oscars were even happening until I saw them on at my house when I was visiting. Since, like I said, I wasn't really in my hometown for much of spring break, but that was one of the days I was, and so I watched the first day I was, if I remember correctly, and I had watched them. Sometimes I kind of try to pay attention to what's happening with the Oscars since they're probably the most famous award show, but not super regularly. And yeah, I kind of forgot they were happening until I even saw that they were on. So I thought it was kind of funny that Jimmy Kimmel, this was his fourth time hosting. I looked it up. I thought it was more than that, but now looking it up, it was only his fourth time. And I'll say that. Well, first of all, I think that if I'm not mistaken, I think he hosted last year, and then the year some of the years before that, there weren't hosts just because no one else. I mean, no one would host them. Uh, and I mean, I have to wonder. I mean, I have nothing against him personally, but I kind of have to wonder: are they just bringing him back because no one else wants to host it anymore? Is that the reason? Because I can't really. I mean, he's been the host since. I remember in what was it, 2022? There were like three different hosts, and then when 2018, 2017, I think he hosted both years then. Then, the immediate years before that, most of them, they had to get a new person pretty much every year. There used to be these times where people would host for years and just almost be like the permanent host, but now I guess we're done with that. But I kind of just thought they keep bringing him back, maybe just no one wants to host it anymore. But I looked it up and then I saw that Bob Hope hosted the Oscars 19 times, and then Billy Crystal hosted 9 times, which makes them the top two hosts of all time. So, I mean, I guess Jimmy isn't even to half their numbers yet, so he's got at least like 15 Oscars to go before he's the number one host. Um, I mean, that is to say if he does it every year for the next 15 years, if he lives that. I mean, I'm not saying that in any disrespectful way or anything, but I think he's like, what, nearly 60 now? So, I mean, you really got to count your years when you get to that age. So, hey, I mean, it's not impossible, but he might not be here in 15 years. I mean, that's not like a threat or anything. I'm just saying that, I mean, I'm not going to make it to when I'm 60, I'm not making it 15 years past that. So that's not an insult towards the guy or anything. But I did see like a good amount of movies last year, honestly. I enjoyed all of them to like various degrees. I don't think there were any movies I saw that I really didn't like because I don't really see a lot of movies, but just kind of by coincidence I saw, or I guess coincidence isn't the right word, but by chance I just ended up seeing a lot of movies last year. And I did see Oppenheimer, and I think Oppenheimer deserved pretty much all the awards that it got, since I think it got something like 7 awards, close to that, and it was nominated for the most awards out of any other movie. And I think it deserved all the awards it got, since it was the best of those movies that I saw personally. And I'm glad it's being recognized. I mean, I think people kind of knew it would be, but I'm glad it's being recognized by people. And I'm especially glad out of all the awards, Christopher Nolan won Best Director, because when else is he gonna win that? Because most of his movies are like smart action movies, if you want to call them that. He has the Dark Knight trilogy, and he has Inception and Interstellar. Interstellar wasn't really an action movie, but they're movies that frankly are not going to win many Oscars besides effects and stuff. Once in a while, like a Best Actor nomination or something. So this was like his one chance, and I'm glad he won it now. And I'm glad a movie he directed won Best Picture because I didn't think that would ever happen either. But other than that, I also thought it was kind of interesting that because this was another movie I saw, Godzilla minus one won Best Visual Effects. So honestly, the thing is, I'm not going to go into a huge thing about this, but I saw that movie too, and I liked it. I mean, I noticed a lot of people were acting like it should win Best Picture. I didn't necessarily agree with that, but I did like it, and it was a good movie, and I'm sure it could have been nominated for something else, but the effects were not the best in my opinion. I mean, maybe it's one of those things because I saw it in a theater, and sometimes maybe if you see it at your house, you'll notice things less. But the CGI was not very good, and I feel like it was partially because the budget was not that high for this movie. Maybe Japan doesn't have as big budgets for movies, but that's just because in the United States, budgets for movies are like obscene. Like people spend like $400 million on some movies, and then they don't even turn a profit, and they wonder why. Well, it's because you spent nearly $500 million on it. So maybe it's like Japan's just spending normal numbers on it. From what I can understand, I think Japanese movies generally don't have as high budgets as the United States when you do the conversion of. I don't remember. I mean, this is gonna make me sound like an idiot, but yen I think is the name of the Japanese currency. When you convert that to American dollars, maybe, I mean, you see that their budgets for movies just usually aren't as high. So that's probably why. But I feel like the effects were the only thing I really didn't like about that movie. So that's the thing. I don't really get why that movie won. But then I think about it, it's like, well, what could have won instead? Because I don't know what it is, but 2023, I can't think of that many movies that had, great visual effects. I mean, they weren't all terrible, but I can't really think of many other movies that should have won. So maybe it did deserve it. I don't know. But I really miss, this is like a side conversation, but I miss when the Godzilla movies had the people in costumes. Like, I'm going to be honest, I think that kind of looked like when those are kind of effects are done well, and this might sound ridiculous, but when I think people in costumes can actually look pretty convincing. There are some movies where they've done that. I think the later Godzilla movies, like the 90s and the 2000s, they still had people in costumes then, but I think it looked pretty good. I wish they would have done that for this movie. Maybe it's because this movie was a bit more serious than other Godzilla movies and they thought that would look too ridiculous. But I don't know. I think that would have been kind of cool. But whatever, I guess. Like I said, I don't think it personally deserved to win just based on the quality of the movie itself, but I can't think of another movie that deserved it. So I don't know. Maybe it's fine. Also, aside from that, Oppenheimer won Best Picture, which again, I think it deserved. But there was some controversy about that because Al Pacino came out to present the award. You might already know about this. And instead of, naming the nominees beforehand where they showed all the video footage, he just said what won. He just opened up the envelope and said what won. And now I'm not trying to say I'm some sort of like genius or anything, but I kind of predicted that would happen as soon as he came out. And the reason is because, I'm not trying to be a douche or whatever. I respect him. He's a great actor. But when he came out, he just looked like he just woke up from a nap or something, and he didn't even know what was going on. And so I don't really blame him for screwing that up. I didn't predict exactly he would just skip through the nominees and go to the award, but I predicted something was going to happen as soon as he came on stage. And also because he's Al Pacino, he's unpredictable, so anything could happen. But I will say I predicted maybe he would do something that was like just stupid instead of just reading the award. Reading the winner. I predicted maybe he would like completely get a name wrong or something, but no, he didn't. So good for him. He did better than I thought he would. But I was watching that live when it happened. I kind of predicted that okay, something goofy is going to happen now that he's coming on stage. And I have watched the clip a few times because I wanted to confirm this, and I feel like I was wrong. I was wrong actually, but I could have sworn when I watched it that there was like an audible gasp when he just opened the envelope and started reading what won. I was wrong about that, or at least if it was there, it was a lot quieter than I remember it being. I've only ever watched it on my phone, and when I first saw it, it was on a TV, so maybe because the speaker system was better, I heard it then, and I can't hear it now, but yeah, I could have sworn there was like an audible gasp, but no, there wasn't. Maybe he like slightly, I feel like he kind of slightly reacted like there was in the crowd, but he didn't really hear it exactly, but, that's okay. He did his best, and it's not even really entirely his fault that there was a screw up, which I'll get to later, but I was going to say that he kind of said that when he was talking about it, because, people interviewed about him, which I think was a bit of an overreaction, to be fair. It's not like he killed anyone, we don't need to, like, interrogate him on it, okay? You just read the winner without saying the nominees before. We all have the internet. We already knew the nominees, okay? But he said that one of the producers told him to do that, and at first I didn't really believe that. I kind of assumed, like, maybe some homeless guy came up to him in an alley before giving out the award and just muttered some random crap, and Al interpreted that as a producer telling him what to do, that they were just going to skip reading the nominees and just go to the winner. So I kind of assumed that he's just making this up, and I was kind of hoping the producers, don't try to sue him for slander or anything. But apparently he was telling the truth, because I read that Oscars producer Molly McNerney, I probably said that wrong, but she confirmed that was like a creative decision. And according to Variety, I read that it was because the creative team was very worried that the show was going to be long. And it was kind of long. First of all, it started earlier. I don't know if it was because it was going to be long, but it was like 3.5 hours. The show's already pretty long. And yeah, I don't really blame them, since I think there was less than 10 minutes of the show left by this point. And I was thinking, if this is just a one-time thing, like for example, sometimes in news or whatever, they're going to cut segments on the news because of how long the show's going, and they don't want to go over the hour they have or half hour they have. That kind of makes sense. And I kind of thought, okay, maybe it's something like that they didn't want to. But I think this should be a permanent change because, there's 10 nominees for Best Picture. And I think this is an every year thing. Every year there's 10 nominees. I don't even know if there's 10 movies that come out in a year that are good enough to be nominated for Best Picture, but there are still 10 nominees. And they take forever to announce them. It feels like it's like half the show. No one cares. We all know the nominees. And they might as well just skip to the winner. I guess it builds suspense or whatever when you hear the nominees again, but there's no problem with just skipping to the winner. We already know the nominees. And at this point, we already kind of all knew the winner, too. We all knew it was going to be Oppenheimer, considering the fact that it won all the awards. And not that that's a problem. I'm completely in support of that. but still, we all knew it was going to win. So Al Pacino just did the right thing and skipped right to the winner. But another thing that was kind of interesting I wanted to talk about is that, and this is probably the big viral thing that I didn't really think this was all that funny, which we'll get to, but it was kind of interesting, is John Cena presented the Oscar for Best Costume Design, and in a tribute, I mean, if you want to call it that, to when 50 years ago a guy streaked across the stage during the Oscars, they did this thing where he came out naked and he was wearing a Best Costume Design envelope, over his junk, and I think that, first of all, calling it a tribute maybe is a bit exaggerating. I mean, I say that because I think that's funny, but also because it was more of like, I guess, a joke about that. Because, they were doing this segment where Jimmy Kimmel was implying they were going to do a thing where John Cena was going to streak across the stage as a joke in reference to that, but instead he just presented the award. I mean, I didn't think it was all that funny. I mean, like, whatever, it was fine, I guess, but, I didn't think it was anything special. But I saw there were plenty of people who had much stronger opinions on that because not only did they say it wasn't funny, but people on social media I've seen claiming that it's part of the quote gay agenda. Like you hear that term a lot that people say, and that's trying to make kids woke or something. And I mean, I find it funny, people are getting offended at that joke because you don't see anything. I mean, maybe if like I don't know, he actually streaked across the stage, I would understand people being upset about it. Not people trying to be homophobic about it. That's ridiculous. But I understand people maybe getting offended by it if he actually ran across the stage naked because a lot of people watch the Oscars, I guess, and a lot of people didn't want to see that. I mean, I wouldn't want to see it. But, people are getting offended at that joke. And it's usually the people who go on about how, you can't make jokes about anything anymore. And those are the people who get offended at it. I mean, yeah, it's like it was a pretty safe joke, at least in my opinion, in terms of that. Again, you didn't see anything. I mean, I guess it was a risk that I haven't seen if he was actually naked or not. I mean, I kind of assumed when I watched it he wasn't actually naked, and he had because I don't think you see any of his waist really. He had like maybe a Speedo on or something that you just didn't see, and you're just supposed to pretend he was naked. But if he was, then you still didn't see anything, so I didn't see what the problem was. And the other thing is, when you talk about kids being like, it's inappropriate for kids, what kid is watching the Oscars, I mean, if you're a kid and you admit to enjoying the Oscars in school or something, I mean, you're probably going to get beat up. And you would deserve it, you damn nerd. Like, you shouldn't be watching the Oscars when you're like 8 years old, What kid is watching that junk? I mean, I'm an adult and I barely watch it. And I don't even care. But the other thing I noticed was that people commented on how there was this joke about Trump apparently made a Truth Social post or, a tweet. An incel tweet is a fun nickname for it, to attack the Oscars during the show. And Jimmy Kimmel responded during the show by reading it out and kind of making fun of Trump. He had some line where he said it was past his jail time or something. And I watched that when it was live action too. I didn't see the John Cena thing, but it was near the end of the show. And I didn't really I thought at first it was because I'm pretty sure they make jokes about Trump every Oscars now. Or maybe not, they didn't. I feel like they didn't 2022 just because that was during that period where he wasn't president anymore, and he wasn't actively running for president again anymore. Now he's running for president again, and I don't know, maybe by this time next year he will be president again, so then it'll be relevant. But he responded by reading out the tweet, as I would expect he would, because you're getting tweeted at by Donald Trump during the Oscars, and it's to me, it's just kind of standard political humor that I don't really find all that fun. Not saying political humor can't be funny, but I didn't really think it was all that funny. But what was kind of funny was the reaction to it, where I've seen a lot of people kind of on the right saying that they have a problem that, well, the two things are that one, that it's making the Oscars too political, because, in the good old days, the whole family could gather around no matter what and watch the Oscars. Again, I mean, we already kind of established that a child should not be watching the Oscars, not because it's inappropriate, but just because if you're a kid and you're into the Oscars, then, you probably don't have any friends in school. And then the other thing is that people think he was I see this all the time when anyone makes fun of Trump, that it's disrespectful to the president, it's demeaning the office of the president. And as I already said, first of all, the Oscars are political pretty much every year now. And they have been for, 20-something. Even before Trump, there's all sorts of political comments, mostly from like left-leaning people during the Oscars. And, I'm not going to say whether that's right or wrong or whatever, but that's just kind of how it is. I don't know why people would pretend that's a new thing. And, second off, if Trump is going to make a point to attack Jimmy Kimmel, some random comedian during the Oscars, that, and it's not even the most highly watched awards or anything. And I saw something that apparently they got pretty good ratings compared to the last few years, so maybe people do watch it. I don't know. But, I mean, if he's going to make a point to attack Jimmy Kimmel, he's already kind of damaging the office of the president and disrespecting it, I feel like. I mean, I know he's not the president currently, but, if he can't be talked about, even though he's not the president anymore without disrespecting the office, then he can't be doing that either and expect that people won't respond because it would be disrespecting the office. So there's not really much Jimmy Kimmel can do. I mean, I probably, if I was him, wouldn't respond during the show only because, you're just going to have to kind of expect he's going to say stuff like that. Even though I don't even know if he mentioned Trump much during the Oscars, but whatever, at least compared to previous years. But, if you're gonna be making comments like that during the show, you got to expect the people involved to respond. So, like I said, overall, I don't really watch the Oscars at all. But, good for them that they're able to survive and still get people pissed off because, how long, 2 years ago was when Chris Rock slapped Will Smith? Or, no, it was the other way around. What am I talking about? Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. And people thought that was like the peak, that it was never going to go any higher than that, and it still hasn't. But it seems like every year, there's at least one. I shouldn't say every year. It's been 2 years since then. They try to think of something that's going to increase the ratings, which isn't surprising. Probably isn't even a new thing anyway. You want to increase the ratings of the show, but they haven't reached it yet. But who knows? I mean, they're doing their best, and if they keep at it, maybe they will soon enough. Who's to say? So yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say about the Oscars. Basically, Oppenheimer deserved all the awards it got, and I like Godzilla -1, but maybe it should have been nominated for something else. Maybe it could have been nominated for best costume design.